Good morning, or good afternoon whenever you see this, but I'm George Sanders, and here on Straight Talk. Once again, I'm appearing here at LCTV to bring my concerns to you with regards to an article on the warrant for November 1, 2023. That article is with regards to the Webster property that they're wanting to sell to the town, and ask you as a voter, taxpayer and a voter, to approve the town to make purchase of this property. I have some reservations with regards to this item, and I sent a letter on October the 16th to the Select Board, Finance Committee, and the Conservation Commission with regards to my thoughts here. But first, I would like to clarify something with regards to what I'm told as to how this article was voted upon. The Finance Committee, which has 6 members, 1 member recused himself, and the other 5 members said, no, don't make purchase of this property. The Select Board, there was 3 that voted to put it on the warrant. They did not vote saying that they was for the property. They wanted it to go on the warrant so you, the taxpayers and voters, could make a decision on it. So they really did not cast that they was in the affirmative of purchasing it. Now, the other 2 members that voted against it said no, it was not a good deal. So that's how this vote came into the warrant, and it should have explained that 5 from FinCom said no and 1 recused himself. I think you have to be very clear and transparent in telling us what is what. And with the Select Board, it should have stated that there was 3 for putting it on the warrant so you and I could make a decision about it, and 2 was flat out saying it's not a good deal. So that's how that came about, and I just wanted to make that known to you because it's not in the warrant as clear as that. What is the problem? The problem is that they can't use conservation funds because if it's $1 million or more, they cannot use it. So that creates a problem. The valuation, they said $630,000 for the land. The amount of land is 13.5 roughly acres of land. There's wetland there. So if we take the 630,000, they come out to be $17,200 per acre roughly. If we take the 1.6, it comes out to be 44.6 thousand per acre. To find a large acreage of land like that is becoming remote in the town of Littleton at this time. Whether it's wetland or good land, it's becoming remote. You're just not going to find it. What are my thoughts now with regard to this land? I spoke to the chair of conservation last night for roughly about 45 minutes. And he made some good points, And the one point that I had that I told him, I was just flat out the select board, FinCom, and conservation. I told him I was flat out against going outside the levy, asking taxpayers to pick this up and fund the purchase of the Webster property. That's a no-no. I think that there are opportunities and avenues that must be pursued in order to find certain things and make adjustments. And I think if the Webster family wants the town to have this property, then he or she, whoever, will certainly ought to be able to want to work with the town so the town can receive this, because I understand that, historically, over the years, this property has been in the family, and I remember when he came before the select board and saying that he wanted the town to have this property. There was no price talked about it at that time. So therefore, now there seems to be a developer seems to be in the equation now with regards to this property, as that I can sell it to a developer for $1,630,000. And my take on that is, I don't think that was smart to put this in the warrant and tell us that this is what's going on. I think that if you're selling something to someone, you ought to deal with one at a time. Don't mix it, because that's not good. It's almost like pressure is being forced on you by telling you, oh, I got something else if you don't act. And this is not good when you're going out purchasing something. I was a purchasing officer for the federal government, so I'm aware of contract and purchase and offers and so forth and so on. What I want to make clear to you is, I think that if we can do it within the levy, I think it's a good opportunity to make the purchase. And by saying that, that means that something in the budget is going to have to give in order to support certain things. Or if the owner of that land will be willing to divide the wetland up from the good land and come in and sell us the good land for something that someone said would be 1 penny under $1 million. Therefore, the conservation funds could be used to make the purchase. And by doing that, we could obtain the good, and he turn around and donate the wetland to the town, and the town give him a value of that wetland. And let's just say typically, say, okay, you donate, so we feel that this wetland is worth, say, $700,000. And you give him a donation for that amount. Wetland has value. As you well know, when Amazon donated the wetland, 60-some acres of wetland, to the town of Littleton, the water department has a well that they're going to put in on that wetland that's going to produce almost 500,000 gallons of water per day. So there's values in wetland. So to me, that would solve the problem. You could use conservation for that amount, and then you could turn around, get a donation, which you could write off on your taxes, and you could do that. And we could get the land, but yet instead, we get it as a whole. We're going to keep it together. So I think that's one avenue. If the owner really wants to work with the town for the town to have this land and not have the good portion of the land developed there. There's other avenue. I think that one of the things is you got to establish some priorities. There'll be some things that you could sort of kind of put on hold for a short period of time. As you well know in the warrant there, they're going to transfer from stabilization over to the Indian Hill Music Center there, $4 million. Why not take $1 million and pull it out of there? And only put 3 over there. What would be something that we could hold off on? Well, the parking lot would be one. I don't think the parking lot needs to be repair ready at this particular time, which means that if you went and did the parking lot, I'm sure it would cost $1 million to redo the entire thing. That's one avenue, and then they could use the money from conservation to make the purchase of the $630,000 for it and get everything, but still would end up paying the 1.6. I'm going to send a letter over to the chair of finance and just see if something like that is workable or we could do it. I guess the main thing that we want to understand is land is a commodity that you can't grow. You can't make more of it. I also understand that if the town does not take the opportunity to make the purchase on this, then the Webster property is going to be sold for commercial use. There are those that are concerned about the housing industry in this town. They're concerned about the schools. They're also concerned about the fact that Littleton is a rural community, and they would like to sort of kind of see it remain rural to a certain extent. So thereby buying this open space and letting it be open space, you'll still have that character of Littleton being sort of kind of a rural community. And that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. We have quite a bit of housing going up now and more on the way. So the Webster property will be a breath of fresh air, so to speak, that we know nothing's going to be built up over there on that property, except for recreation use for the town of Littleton. This is a tough article. Make no mistake about it. It is tough. And what we need to do as taxpayers and voters is to get the best options that FinCom is going to present to us in terms of possibilities of how we may be able to do this. Hopefully that the articles will go through real fast, because This article is the last one on the warrant, and I can assure you that it's going to take a whole lot of time before we come to a vote on this article. There may be the opportunity for the seller of this to seriously consider breaking up the property and giving and donating the wet land and sell the good land. That's one way of doing it. That's my sort of kind of discussion I was speaking with someone today about. And I think that would work. The most important thing is, do you want the land? If you want the land, then we're going to have to compromise in how we do things and what things get put on hold in order to do it within the levy. Again, I am not for going outside of the levy to purchase this. And you may ask the question, why is that, George? Well, I'll tell you why. There's some things that you're not aware of that you are paying as a taxpayer. Whether you know it or not, whatever amount of money the town collects for real estate, the town is always entitled to collect that amount. If a business closes up and the property is devaluated, that means that the owner is going to pay less money to the town than previous when that property was occupied. So who has to pay that? Well, the state law says that the town is entitled to collect that amount of money, and someone has to pay it. And guess who has to pay that? It is the taxpayers in the town of Littleton has to make up the difference so the town will always remain whole. Let me give you an example. 550 Kane Street, IBM. IBM moved out of there. The assessment on that property was up to $60 million. And the town was collecting taxes on that. But the property was sold, it went empty, and then it was sold for $21, $22, or $23 million. So the amount that was sold versus the amount that the town had been collecting taxes on, the town, by state law, is entitled to collect that amount. $660,000 of taxes. Well, guess what? Taxpayers of Littleton is making up the difference on the IBM property at 550 King Street until such time the valuation goes back up to $60 million. Then taxpayers will stop having to pay that extra money that the town is entitled to collect. Last year, how much did you pay towards 550? About $130. Some of you probably didn't even know that. And you're going to continue to pay it until such time the valuation moves up to growth over 60 million. That's when we no longer will have to pay. So that's an example as to why I said don't go outside the levy to try to purchase this Webster property, because you will be reaching in your pocket for additional money. And not only that, let me bring something else to your attention. As you know, the town is in the process of looking at building an elementary school. We don't know exactly what the dollar value is going to be on that property or that project. But we know one thing for sure. We are not able as a town to handle that project within the budget, within the levy. We're going to have to go outside the levy to fund the building of that project. So that's additional money that, rightfully so, you're going to have to reach into your pocket and pull a little extra out. It is not an easy thing owning property, because unless you know the details, ins and outs of what's going on, you don't know exactly how much you're paying. You think you're just paying for your property. You're not just paying for your property, you're paying for somebody else's property too. And right now, IBM is the only property in the town of Littleton that taxpayers are helping the town to collect the amount of money that was due on that property. There's no other. So that's a good thing. We only got one we're faced with. But when we talk about this Webster property, I don't think that you're going to find another piece of property as large as this to help keep the character of this town as open space and for recreation use. And it's not a large amount of money for the acreage, where the acreage having wetland is what brings down the price of the valuation of that 36 and a half acres of land. As you well know, environmentally, you can use some wetland to build on, but it is a costly situation to do it. And that's why a lot of time projects will go up on the good land and donate the wetland usually to the community. And like I said, wetland has a value too, because the one that's off of Taylor Street over there, we're going to put a well in over there, and that's going to mean more water for Littleton. And as it stands right now, Littleton is using about 1 million gallons, or maybe just a little bit over 1 million gallons of water a day. So I think, from my conversation speaking with the chair of conservation, he said to me that I probably won't change your perspective, George, but I want you to understand why conservation is saying we would like to try and purchase this land, because we think as a whole it will be good for the town of Littleton. I don't disagree with him. What we will have to see at the town meeting is what the chair of the Finance Committee and its members is going to present to us at the town meeting, and what makes sense and what is possible or feasible if we do A or B or C, whatever the case may be. I want you to think about this. Would it be better to have that land or not? And I want the owner to think about this. Maybe you can come back, divide the land up, sell the good land for 1 penny under $1 million, and donate the wetland to the town. And I said to the town, you should give him a nice donation gift for that wetland, because that wetland has value. Who knows? We may have to put in more wells. And the wetland would be an ideal location to put a well in. This is not an easy article. And it is not easy for us as taxpayers to say, give the town a blank check. I am not for giving the town a blank check. I'm for helping the town in any means possible with solutions that come before the town meeting that makes good sense for us as taxpayers to vote and say, yes, we will do that. So with having said that, as always, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come before you and to express my thoughts about how we may be able to handle something and how we may be able to do something that will be beneficial for the citizens of this town and this town as a whole. We must take care of each other. We must look out for each other. And I am a firm believer that if we can do it within the budget, within the levy, go ahead and do it. I am not for when you ask for outside the levy. There's rare exceptions when I say yes to that. And I know the school is one of those rare exceptions that we're going to have to say yes, we will support it outside the levy. So on the horizon, you know what is coming down the pipeline. Eventually this town is going to be in better shape with revenue once this 550 in the common area, Northern Bank, all those locations up there get well developed. The town is going to start bringing in more money. And we'll have a better opportunity to deal with things, hopefully a lot better. And I want to say to you, I think that we have some of the most knowledgeable and smart individuals on FinCom, and I really appreciate each and every one of them because their hearts are in the right place, are doing the very best that we are entrusting them to do for us as taxpayers. And I have to say, I think we have some good select people at this particular point in time. But who should we be following and making sure that we are going in the right direction? It is FinCom. FinCom is the one that tells us and keep us in the straight path of where we should be. So I say to you, listen to our FinCom people for what they have to tell us at this town meeting, because the chair of FinCom is a very dedicated and smart individual that I have the utmost respect for. With having said that, thank you and good day.